Control of the Senate going to be absolutely critical and a very close-fought contest in this upcoming election. And one of the most important races in that Senate battle is going to be Pennsylvania. We have U.S. Senate candidate Dave McCormick with us now. He's a veteran business owner, and we want to talk to him about how he's going to win. What's up, Dave? Good to have you back.
Hey, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. We're always having fun on the show, trying to fix America, trying to save the world. Things are busy over here. I know you want to join in on that effort in the Senate, or at least do your part in the Senate to try to set things right in this country. I've got a lot of questions for you. I wanted to know, how are things stacking up right now against Casey, your competitor? He's the incumbent. Are you able to start to chip away at, and you've just released your first ad. It's up at clayandbuck.com for anyone who wants to see it. But some of the advantages of just the Pennsylvania Democrat Party versus whatever the Republicans have set up there. What kind of infrastructure are you building?
You know, it's I feel great about the election for a couple reasons. Number one, Pennsylvania is becoming a red state. So in 2016, when President Trump won, we had 1.6 million more registered Democrats than Republicans. Today it's 400,000. So we've got lots of people becoming Republicans. Second thing is we've got a lot of work underway to make sure that we start to compete on mail-in ballots, because we've lost the last couple races badly because of that. And so there's a lot of coordination with our team and the RNC and the president's team to build out a vote-in ballot infrastructure to make sure that we compete. And then finally, this is a change election, guys. 80% of Pennsylvanians think the country's headed in the wrong direction. And Bob Casey, whether it's the terrible inflation challenge that we have for working families, or whether it's the wide open border and the fentanyl deaths, 5,000 in Pennsylvania, whether it's the war on fossil fuels, Bob Casey's been at the scene of the crime for every one of those things. He's voted with Biden 98% of the time. And Pennsylvanians think that he's not been serving their interests well. And that's why I'm optimistic that I'm going to be able to prevail.
Talking to Dave McCormick, who all of you need to go vote for in Pennsylvania. I'm assuming that most of what you're hearing as you travel around is inflation and the economy is still near the peak of what people care about. What else, and certainly the border and the border, what have you found that Pennsylvanians care the most about? What is 2024 in the state of Pennsylvania likely to be a referendum on?
You know, I ask that question every room I'm in, and it's three issues, sometimes a fourth. The first issue is, you said, inflation. For 60% of Pennsylvanians, working families, prices are up by 18%. Real wages are up by a lot less. They're getting squeezed on food, fuel, rent. Pickup truck payments are now 60% higher. So this is a big deal for working families, and Joe Biden's made it a lot worse with his war on energy, which has pushed up fuel prices and inflation. Second thing is border. And the reason the border is so important is because people see fundamental unfairness and national security risk. But fentanyl, 5,000 people have died in Pennsylvania in the last year due to fentanyl. This is enormous. This is 100,000 people. This is the war that's actually killing Americans right now, and that's because of the wide open border policies of Joe Biden. Third is crime. Crime is spiraling out of control. Violent crime in Philadelphia, in Pittsburgh. We've got a huge uptick in crime. And the main problem, and this is where Bob Casey's culpable, is that we can't fill our police forces. And, in Pittsburgh, where I live, we had 1,000 cops in 2020. In the Pittsburgh police force, we have 650 now. And this is putting a huge burden on our communities. And the reason for it is because of this huge defund the police movement. Bob Casey was endorsed last week by Indivisible Philadelphia, which is a radical group that's called for defunding the police. It's the fact that they don't have adequate immunity, the fact that we have these left-wing prosecutors like Larry Krasner putting violent criminals back on the streets. All of these things are adding up to disorder and lawlessness in our cities and our suburbs, which is really shaking Pennsylvania. So I'd say that's the third issue.
And Dave, the Biden administration, I was going to say, it's got a problem on its hands. It's got a lot of problems on its hands. One of them, though, is trying to have it both ways with Israel. On the one hand, starting out as supportive and now really trying to score points with the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party, which I think
Yeah.
people have seen in all of its nastiness in the months since October 7th. Um, Pennsylvania has a pretty substantial Jewish population. A few 100,000 votes is what I understand
Yeah.
it to be. And that could very well be the difference in Pennsylvania. How are you seeing the Israel Hamas issue play out with regard to the Jewish and Muslim populations in Pennsylvania, the Democrat Party, and how is that trending?
Yeah. Well, listen, first, I mean, it was a horrific what happened on October 7th. My wife and I think you and I spoke about this. We went to Israel early in the new year. We went to Kfar Aza, where this community of 800, which had 100 people butchered. We met with hostage families. We met a young woman who was wounded at the music festival, was shot in a bomb shelter. All her friends around her were killed, and they fell on top of her. That's the only reason she survived. You can't believe the barbarism of Hamas. And that evil is directed not just at Israel, it's directed at the West. And it's not just Hamas, it's Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad, the Houthis, and it's the underwriter. The original sin is Iran, giving them back the $100 billion of sanctioned money, which they're using to fund terrorism. And the deciding vote on that was a guy named Bob Casey in 2015. He's been a supporter of appeasement of Iran ever since then. And so this is an issue that's very much front of mind, and it's a question of moral clarity. And Bob Casey's shown none of it. And ironically, John Fetterman has, where John Fetterman calls out the radical progressive left and says we need to stand with Israel. Bob Casey is quiet. When John Fetterman says that we have to stand with Israel in the destruction of Hamas, and we should stand against the UN when it makes a crazy vote like it did yesterday, Bob Casey keeps his head down. And this is a big issue for voters because the Jewish voters don't think of themselves solely as Democrats or Republicans. They think of themselves first and foremost Americans, but also great supporters of Israel. I have been a strong voice on this. Bob Casey's been weak, has not shown moral clarity, and I think it's going to be an issue. I definitely feel that when I'm talking to people that this is an existential moment, and they're questioning their allegiance to the Democratic Party and certainly to Bob Casey.
We're talking to Dave McCormick, Pennsylvania Senate candidate. You worked in business for much of your life, and I would say that's a calling card that registers and resonates with many people. When you see what is being done to Donald Trump, the prosecution, particularly for fraud by the state of New York, trying to take $454 million from him, we've heard a lot of business people say that would make me question whether I wanted to have a lot of my assets in New York. From a business perspective, what do you think about Letitia James and what she's doing to Donald Trump in that case?
Well, the thing that's made America the gem of the world in terms of being able to conduct business is clarity of regulations and the opportunity for free enterprise, but the belief that we have a judicial system that will treat everybody fairly. And what's happened here is a clear violation of that trust, a clear abomination of the judicial system, where the judicial system is being used to attack Donald Trump and to put demands on him that no person, I mean, the idea that they're saying he should be able to generate $500 million of cash, no matter how wealthy you are. No one has those kinds of assets liquid, and it's an enormous burden. And it's made clear that this is a completely political exercise. And I frankly think it's undermined not just the New York judicial system, but the country at large, because this is happening in a number of other cases where we're seeing a two-tier justice system. I also think, ironically, it's giving President Trump a lot of support, because people who are on the fence are saying, "Man, that guy's getting the short end of the stick." They're coming at him in a way that's fundamentally unfair, and therefore I want to support him. And so I think this is backfiring, but I think it's an horrific example, and I think it gives us all pause. That we live in a country where the judicial system is going to treat us fairly, particularly if we're showing political allegiances that are different than those in power in those states.
So between now and the election, Dave, I assume you're going to be just spending a ton of time out there on the road, knocking doors, meeting people, shaking hands, everything else. I mean, what would you tell? I mean, you're going to be telling them, but obviously you're speaking to a lot of Pennsylvanians right now who are listening. Your top priorities if you win this Senate seat, which is we think you can do it. It's not going to be easy, right? You got a 3-term
Yeah,
incumbent. I think he's right. He's been in 18 years at this point, Casey.
yeah,
But you can do
18
it.
years, and yeah,
I was just going to
I
say,
really,
what are the
yeah.
things that you want to get right on and try to get your Senate colleagues to unify around on the Republican side, and hopefully have a President Trump to sign as
Yeah.
acts, of the Senate.
Well, we have to secure the border. It is an enormous threat of sort of unprecedented proportion. And I think, as I've said publicly before, we need to treat the fentanyl crisis like the war that it is. And I would be very, very focused on that, including the idea of interdicting the fentanyl ingredients coming from China, but also using our military forces to go in and destroy the cartels in Mexico. That's a big step, but this is a big war and a big threat to America, and I think we need to do that and do it in a very thoughtful way, potentially in cooperation with the Mexican government, but to the extent that the government's even compromised by the cartels, we need to solve that problem for Americans. So that's one. Two, listen, energy is critical to America's national security. It's critical to our economy, and it's critical. Good energy policy is critical to the environment. And what's happened under Joe Biden has been an abomination. It's hurt our security, it's hurt our economy, and it's hurt our environment. And Pennsylvania is unique here. We're the 4th largest natural gas reserves in the world. This is a huge opportunity. If we can get the pipeline permits we need, if we can have an offshore export facility, if we can reduce the regulatory and the legal burden, Pennsylvania can just unlock enormous potential for Pennsylvania, but also for America. So permit reform, reducing the regulatory burden that the Biden administration has put on our natural gas companies and our oil companies and so forth would be a huge part. And here's the irony. The Biden administration, with its huge focus on solar panels and EVs, has made us more dependent on our main adversary, China. Lithium batteries and solar panels come from China, our biggest adversary. So the national security threat from China is growing because we're making ourselves more dependent. As a guy with expertise in national security who's served in combat, served in the military, and a businessman, I will focus on energy policy as a way to really put America in a different place, but also Pennsylvania.
Dave McCormick, obviously, who wins Pennsylvania may determine who wins the presidency, also can determine control of the Senate. What do you see on the ground so far? Everybody knows Trump. Everybody knows Biden.
Yeah.
What do you see on the Trump-Biden front, and how do you think that is going in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Well, Pennsylvania has 67 counties. As I told you, the voter registration is very close. 67 counties, 55 of them are red counties. So these are Republican counties. They're rural counties, small counties. In those counties, President Trump is going to be a huge advantage for our ticket in terms of getting out the vote. He's been able to mobilize voters that don't vote consistently, register new voters, even flip Democrats to become Republican voters. So that rural game and his ability to get out the base is an enormous advantage. And then in those other counties, there's lots of persuadable voters, lots of swing voters who could go either way. And I think my job, and I think what I can bring to this is, I think President Trump's efforts are going to help bring out the base. I think those persuadable voters, those independents, those conservative Democrats, those suburban moms that are worried about crime and fentanyl and inflation, I think getting those out and persuading them to build the coalition we need to win is going to be absolutely critical. And this is where I think President Trump can help me, and I hope that I can help him. And we're going to win this election by a few points. Pennsylvania's not a place you can win by 5 or 10 points, I don't think. It's a place you're going to win by a couple points. And building that coalition of motivated people who are worried that our country's slipping away is our challenge and our opportunity. And I feel great about it because, as I said, 80% of Pennsylvanians feel like the country is moving in the wrong direction. President Biden is at unprecedented levels of unpopularity. He's at 36 in Pennsylvania. So what we need to convince people is that we need change, and they're already convinced, and we need new leadership. They're already convinced. And in my case, I want to convince them that I'm the senator who can make a real difference in their lives, and I think I can.
He's Dave McCormick. How would you tell people to go check out your website to support you if they want to help make the flip in the Senate happen? DaveMcCormickPA.com. Lots of ways to get involved. I am driving across our 67 counties in my campaign bus. I'm living in this thing. It's our mobile campaign headquarters, and I'm looking for opportunities to meet as many Pennsylvanians as I can. So
appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk to your listeners.
No doubt. Dave McCormick, we appreciate your time. And I hope that as you're driving across the state of Pennsylvania, you have some good televisions on so you can watch March Madness, which starts again tomorrow. I bet you're watching March Madness because I know you had your first first ad up, and it involved your college wrestling career.
It sure did. Yeah, that ad, it really captures Pennsylvania because wrestling's a huge deal in Pennsylvania. It may even be bigger than basketball or football. And wrestling shows a lot about grit and resilience and leadership and making tough choices and doing hard work. And that's exactly what we need in the Senate right now. I'll be watching. I was disappointed that Duquesne,
yes,
which had a great start in the Sweet 16 in the tournament rather, didn't make it to the next round. But I'll be watching and cheering. I've got my bracket. So far, it doesn't look so good, but we'll see.
No doubt. Thank you, Dave McCormick. And if your bracket doesn't look very good, Thursday, Friday, I'm going to give you out some picks with Prize Picks. I want all of you out there to go to prizepicks.com, use my name, Clay, and they'll give you $100 if you put $100 in. If you don't have $100, you want to put 20, they'll give you 20. Whatever you put in, they will match. 3 of the last 4 that I gave out over Friday, I think it was, hit. One of our guys did not hit, but 3 of the 4 picks that I gave out hit. That allows you to win double your money. I'm going to give you 4 picks on Thursday, and I'm going to give you 4 picks on Friday. Right now, go ahead and sign up, prizepicks.com. Use my name, Clay, and you can get up to $100 free. We're going to try to hit a 10 for 1 on Thursday and a 10 for 1 on Friday. Prizepicks.com. My name, Clay, California, Texas, Georgia. You can take advantage. Over 30 states you can play. Prizepicks.com/Clay.